Hello, how are you today? This is Matthew from Love Buddy. This is another LoveCast. We're here every day at the same time. Right now, it's 10 p.m. in New York on Wednesday night, June June 12th, 2019. And right now, I'm in the Philippines. Here, local time is 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, June 13th, 2019. Hope you're having a wonderful day, or hope you had a wonderful day. Hope everything's going great with you. We're going to talk about border control today. Border control, a lot of people have some very, very strong opinions about this. It's one of those topics that's quite controversial. And people can get really angry. People get really frustrated because they have principles. They have something they believe in. They have something that they feel strongly about. And when when you feel strongly about something, when it's something that you really believe in, something that you consider to be a principle, something, my father used to use the phrase common sense. But unfortunately, something that we consider ourselves to be common sense, a principle, something important that we need to stand by. That's our own values. That's our own judgment. That's our own decision. And a lot of times it's our own kind of personal dogma. I'm not talking about dogma from religion. I'm talking about dogma from a personal belief standpoint. I stand for this. I'm standing up for this. What are the things that we stand up for? Border control, one of them. Do you believe that we should build a wall to stop Mexican people from coming in? Turn back time, that was Mexico there. And then it was taken by other people. When you turn the clock back, all kinds of places belong to other people at one point. In my opinion, it's kind of hard to keep track. For example, some people in Israel say, well, Jewish people were here and this is the Jewish homeland and then they have a right to return. But these are people that, I know a guy from Morocco. He was born in Morocco and he owns land in Israel because what the Israeli military machine has provided him. But the guy's a Moroccan. Me, I'm a mix. Should I claim that I have the right to go back to France or to Germany or to Canada or to Scotland? I don't know. I don't think that I have the right to go back and kick somebody out of their home. So I think this idea of borders and owning countries and owning land, and that based upon ancestral heritage, because my grandfather, what about sitting in a restaurant? Hey, I was sitting in that spot yesterday. Get out of my spot. In fact, my family has been taking this chair in this restaurant for 3 years, and you just got here. So this is ours. We're claiming this. That's ridiculous. Where somebody is where they are right now. So what's going on with this border situation with all these immigrants coming in? Whether they are immigrants from Iraq going into Sweden. I know Swedish people that were complaining about the Iraqis coming. Whether it's people in Germany. I know there was a lot of, when I was in Germany, and this was quite several years ago, there was a strong Muslim presence. There was a strong Arabic speaking presence. There were a lot of people from other countries that were there. People kind of move around. And that's becoming more and more the issue. That's becoming more and more the situation. What about America? What about Mexico? What about controlling the border? Should these Mexican people or these Central American people now, people from Nicaragua or people from the Central American countries, should they be allowed to come into America? As an American citizen, what do you think about that? Do you think they should be allowed to come in to cross the border from one country into another country and then try to make a living or try to benefit from the benefits that the United States has, but that Mexico does not have? Is that something that's going to be threatening to you? Well, this becomes such a complicated issue because it depends on what you are assuming is right about how should a country dominate, control the resources. And when I say country, I mean government, because it rarely has anything to do with the common citizens. And we've seen that in America, right? Where they're doing pipelines and they're taking water in California based upon what corporations want or based upon what the US government wants in its best interest, but can be devastating to the local people. China has the biggest dam in the world, and that huge dam project flooded villages and villages and villages of people that had to relocate. So governments really make the decisions about land. It's not really individuals. If you're living in El Paso, Texas, or you're living in I'm thinking of a better example. If you're living in a city that's a border city, Texas with Mexico, or Arizona or New Mexico, or California with Mexico, and you have a friend in Mexico that you do business with, or you have beers with, or you hang out with, do you care a lot about whether or not they cross the border, or somebody's got to cross the border to see somebody? And the border control is getting more and more strict. When I was living in San Diego, I lived there for about 14 years. I didn't normally even need ID of any kind just to walk across. Sometimes they'd ask me, sometimes they'd look at my face. Sometimes they'd ask me where you're from or where you're going. One time I was driving a group of friends across the border, and the guy asked, is this car stolen? I didn't know how to answer that. But anyway, the border control, you know, the people that are border agents now on the Canadian side, things are getting more and more difficult for Americans from the USA to go into Canada or vice versa. There are inspections and there are a lot of questions about what you're doing, what are you trying to do? So what this appears to me is that there's some kind of like a group of people who say, we own this geographical space. We're going to control this geographical space. And that's, if you look at the USA, that's a pretty huge piece of property that they're saying, anybody who comes in or out, we're going to control that. And this is occurring more and more in other countries. In China, I know friends that have been there recently, I've been there for a couple of years, but friends that have been there recently say it's a nightmare to get through the airport. Even if you're just, even if you're just stopping temporarily within China because you're flying a Chinese airline from maybe Thailand to Japan or something like that, and you have to stop in China, the rigorous checking and inspection and personal violation of your personal property is getting worse and worse. I mean, these full body scans basically are like you taking off all of your clothes and showing your naked body to whoever's looking at that scan. Got to take off your shoes, got to take off your belt. Because one time, one guy tried to light his shoe on fire on an airplane. So everybody's got to take their shoes off. To me, it seems like there is, this isn't about love, is it? This is about non-trust. This is about not trusting people. This is about not trusting people before you know anything about them. And this is about racism, isn't it? Or it's about nationalism. This is about saying, because you don't have the right ID, because of where you were born, you don't have the right to do this or that or be here or there. It has absolutely nothing to do with personal merit, has nothing to do with personal contribution to the group, your community, or the people around you. You can be a total slacker, not helping anything, not doing anything good for anybody in the world in America, and have been born there and be an American citizen with an American ID. And you're totally accepted. But if you're hardworking, and you know, these guys that come from Mexico, if you look on the internet, YouTube, you can see these guys that come from Mexico bust their butts in the agricultural industry, especially. Who does the gardening? Who does the hard work for a low price all over Southern California? I lived in LA for 9 years. I was born in Los Angeles. So I lived there 4 years, and then I went back and lived another 9. So a total of 13 years in Los Angeles, and 14 years in San Diego. I know Southern California pretty well. I know the guys who do the hardest work and get paid the least are the people from Mexico. They're being taken advantage of. What about the Palestinians that work in Israel? Lower wages, harder work, less rights, less respect. I mean, we used to talk about the Mexican people. And it was oftentimes in a derogatory way because we didn't understand the culture. I don't do that anymore. But now I've done a little bit of travel. Now I understand the world a little bit more. So what's absolutely amazing is that people will say, just because where you were born, not always the color of your skin at all, because there are people who were 100% Mexican blood that are born in the US and they have all the rights. But if you're not born in the US, then you don't have those rights. And it has nothing to do with personal merit. It has nothing to do with how hard you work, how honest of a person you are, how much you're contributing to the people around you. The skills that you have, sometimes that matters with immigration, sometimes it matters with getting a job, but a lot of times it has nothing to do with it. So about border control, should we stop people from coming in? What about school control? Should we stop people with machine guns from coming in and blowing up the classrooms, killing all the kids inside? What about control in a post office or a postal worker, somebody coming back to their office who has a grudge? Are we controlling that? What about the police? You know, those police that are out there beating people up, those people that are out there, those police that are out there that are creating speed traps. And if you're so many miles an hour, just a few miles an hour over the limit, you're paying these huge fines. What about all the criminals on Wall Street that only care about money but don't care about people? What about all the criminal? What is a criminal, by the way? How do we define a criminal? I would define a criminal from the standpoint of love, from the standpoint of a foundation of love and what love is. Are you hurting somebody? If you're throwing somebody out of their home onto the street, I would say that's a criminal thing to do. I don't care what the paperwork says. I don't care what the bank is doing. There are more open houses that are available. There's nobody living there than there are homeless people, but there are homeless people by the thousands and thousands on the streets all over the country. There are people that lose that, you know, you can't get food. You can't feed your family. And if you steal a loaf of bread, that's considered a criminal offense. I'm not encouraging stealing, but at the same time, why don't the people that are running the government, why aren't the people that are in charge that are making the decisions make sure everybody's being fed? They're not. That's not the goal. They're not trying to do that. And why don't they make sure that the people that are already citizens of the United States, that they have integrity and character that they're contributing? You know why? Because a lot of the leadership is not. A lot of the leadership is corrupt and is getting paid when they shouldn't be being paid. They do have the power to do things that are not even legal, but they take advantage. People take advantage when they get in a position of power. So there's not much accountability, but love is about accountability. Love is about equality. And that means that we're all equal. We all should have the right to a happy life. But there are people that control the laws, they control the resources, and they dictate with guns behind them, with military behind them, and with the largest prison system in the world. If you are not completely compliant, because we have no sense of community, people will stand around and watch somebody get hauled off and thrown in jail. How about the guy who was recently feeding people? He was putting water out so that the people who were immigrating, people that were running from Mexico or from Central America and sneaking across the border into America, and they're in the middle of the desert, they don't have enough water with them, and they're dying out there. People die out there all the time. And there's a humanitarian guy that was just recently detained. I think he was in prison. No, it wasn't in prison. I think it was in jail. But a lot of people stood up for him. They didn't stand up for the people that weren't so famous. You know, he's kind of a famous guy. A couple people with him he's really concerned about right now. He said, what are they going to do with them? You know, they didn't get the attention that I got, because he was more of a famous guy that's helping people. He doesn't care about what ID you have. He cares about human life. And he was arrested for that. He was arrested for help. You know, people get arrested for creating food lines or outside because the government doesn't want that to happen if you're helping somebody who needs help. Does that sound like that's humanitarian? Does that sound like that's compassionate? Does that sound like that's loving? No. So when it comes to border control, when it comes to controlling who gets to work, who gets to contribute, who gets to find a job, and who gets to live where, it's not about compassion. It's not about love. It's not about nurturing. It's not about empowerment. It's about imprisonment. It's about a specific group of people saying, this is ours, you can't have it. Who says it's theirs? Their guns, their military power, their police force. That's who says they can have it. There's nothing else. They have no right. They were born just like we were born on this planet Earth, but they find a way to manipulate and control resources. They've got some buddies that have the same attitude. Hey, let's grab this part. Let's grab this for ourselves. Let's manipulate things so that we can pay this military, this militia, that will protect what we're calling our resources. And if somebody wants to share those, they've got to jump through hoops, and we're gonna profit from that. We're gonna get more power from that. We're gonna get more money for that. And so it goes with governments and countries. Now, a lot of countries are different levels of corruption, different levels of manipulation. But when we read the news and when we look at what's happening in the US and we understand the ideas about border control, the guy who's the president of the United States right now has gotten in trouble for a lot of things that are considered disrespectful to people, like disrespectful to women, disrespectful to Black people, not giving them rights to rent an apartment. And that's not uncommon at all by the people who control the resources. They say, okay, there's a certain percentage of Black poor people, and there's a certain percentage of them that get involved in drugs or crime or this or that, or they make up statistics if they don't exist. And they say, these guys are high risk, so I'm not going to deal with them. Doesn't matter what your personal merit is. Doesn't matter what your personal contribution to humanity is. Doesn't matter how honest or hardworking of a person you are. Doesn't matter how loving you are. Doesn't matter. It's not about love for these people, but it's about love to me, and I hope it's about love to you. And I hope you care about an individual's merit, as opposed to saying, oh, look, if you don't have an ID, what? You know, because the government is run the way it's run, the way the country is run the way it's run, we get involved in all these other issues as if ID matters. What about the person's individual merits? What about the person's individual ability to contribute? Okay, somebody's a criminal, they're going to come in and rape, or they're going to kill, whatever, things like that. That happens whether you're a US citizen or not. That happens every day all over the place. It's not about your ID that says I'm a rapist, I'm a murderer, I'm a criminal. I want to just come and claim free benefits and just do nothing and be a parasite to other people around me. It's got nothing to do with your ID. It's got something to do with the kind of person that you are, your own merits, whether or not you contribute, whether or not you have a criminal mind. And like I said, a huge number of the criminals are running the government, are in the police force, are in this enforcement. They're hypocrites. So there are people that are of just incredible value all over the world to us, to humanity. They're so loving, they're so giving, they're so nurturing, they're so compassionate, they're so kind. Why do we pay attention to what the darn ID says? When you look at friends, if you're not a bigot, if you're not a racist, you don't care what their ID says. You don't ask to look at their ID and make sure they're a citizen of what country or what race they are. Think about, okay, is this somebody that I can have a good relationship with, a nurturing relationship, that we can get along well together, that we can have fun together, that we can give each other advice about life, that we can team up and do something together, that we can go hiking together, you know, we can do things that are fun, we can socialize, we can chit chat, we can work, maybe make money together. Does any of that have to do with the ID as mandated, as controlled by the people in the government office? Well, look, if you want to steal resources, if you want to take resources, you've got to put a lot of controls in place. You've got to fabricate a lot of rules that have nothing to do with compassion, caring, nurturing, contributing to other people, have nothing to do with accountability. And you yourself especially have to demand that you're not accountable. You don't allow people to ask you questions. You talk behind closed doors like George W. Bush did when 9/11 happened. You got to have secrets, and you can't have the press there, and nobody can take notes, and the doors are closed. And then you set the rules, you set the laws, and you're not accountable to anybody for what the rules and laws are that you make up. But when you look at what the rules create, look at the poverty, look at the chronic poverty in the USA alone. Do you think the people that are making the decisions, the people that you elect, the people that you pay your money to out of your income, the money that you earn and you give to them to support them, do you think these people care at all? The best way to have accountability, the best way to solve this problem is to have a community center, a local community center. You know who's showing up and contributing or not. You know who's taking the most. You know who's helping out and who's not. And people know each other. But right now, people isolate themselves. And there is no sense of community in America and mostly around the world. There's no sense of community, so there's no accountability. There's no way to contribute. Everything just goes directly to the government. They decide what they're going to do with the money they take from your paycheck. They decide. They never ask you. There's never any vote. If you want to solve the border problem, solve the community problem, because it's all about community. It's all about accountability. And you'll find people from any country around the world are just as equal as people from any other country. People with any ID are just as valuable and contributing as people with, and people that are inside America that have all the right credentials could be the most criminal of anybody around. The people that you could trust the least, the people that you would last want to help out and contribute to in your community. So this idea about border control, to me, it's just absolutely just a huge way that people can get distracted and have fights with other people. There's a humanitarian side where people are saying, look, let them in and help them. They're starving, they're walking hundreds of miles, and they're just trying to get a better life because of something the US government did, by the way, in Central America. It's our own fault, or the fault of the US government. And then there's people on the other side saying, look, I don't want them taking my hard-earned money that goes to our benefit programs, that goes to our social programs. I don't want them taking that. They don't have any right to that. That's what we have. That's what we get to have because we're Americans and we work within this system. We're giving away all of our resources to these people that don't even belong here, that aren't even part of what we're doing. Both of these are valid points. You don't want somebody taking something away from you that you don't want to give them, that they didn't earn or they didn't deserve. And you don't want to be so cruel to people that you want them to die out in the desert or have no chance for a job or have no chance to contribute, have no chance to live. And we have a right to live. We have a right to that. So both sides are true. But what really makes this big fighting issue, this border control issue, what really makes this a big fight is the same thing as politics. It's all baloney. You want to take the side of the Republicans, you're going to take the side of the Democrats or another side, Green Party, Independents, and you want to say all those guys are bad and we're good, our candidate is the best. And, you know, as long as I've been around, the government has never really been anywhere near any good to anybody at all. The people that you elect as president, the people that are in charge, they're not really doing anything significant to make the world a better place or to take care of the citizens of the US. It's not about that. It's not what they do. So to me, what does it matter if you're a Democrat or Republican? What does it matter who you voted for? What does it matter who's in office? What really matters the most is if you have a consciousness about the people around you, you have an accountability, you have a sense of community, and you build a community within your local geographical area. And that enforces accountability. You know who the bad guys are. You know who the good guys are. You know what's going on. And that can't be done for 350 million people from one building in the country. Somebody never met me. I don't care what the president says about my life. He has no right. I don't know him. I'm not going to control his life. I'm not going to make mandates about his. You know why he can do it? It's because he's got the guns behind him, because he's got the police force behind him. And as long as the police force is enforcing the rules that are fabricated but are not compassionate, are not nurturing, are not helping people work together, they're not helping people to be empowered, they're not helping people to actualize, These rules are just being enforced in order to empower a small handful of corrupt criminals that are making the decisions, and a smattering of people that are trying to do good, trying to change things, trying to make things better. But they're not going to get anywhere because they don't have the power, they don't have control, and they never will until the individual citizens start to take responsibility, start to be more active, start to meet their neighbors, and start to build community centers. That's the only way I know that it can be done. Border control, it's a red herring. It's a total distraction. It's irrelevant. It's not about that. Republican, Democrat, it's not about that. Black or white, what race you are, it's not about that. It's about our individual merits as individuals. And we don't know how to deal with that unless it's face-to-face dealing with somebody in your local community. Otherwise, it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Who cares? What matters is your life and the people that you know, the people that you interact with. And that's your business. And that's my business. And that's our business. If we're about love, we're about compassion and nurturing to the people around us. And we're about accountability. Hey, I saw you do that thing. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's right. Or I saw you do that thing. That was just absolutely wonderful. I just think you're such a wonderful person. I just think it's great. But somebody 1,000 miles away who's looking for some food, or they're looking for a job, or they're looking for some relief from their horrible, horrible life, and you want to say no because a piece of paper in their pocket isn't the right one. Wow. It's got nothing to do with love. Okay, so that's my opinion. What's your opinion? What do you think about border control? What do you think about this concept of immigration that is really becoming a huge, huge topic, more and more all the time? I'm curious. I want to know what you think. Share if you like. This is Matthew from Love Buddy. This has been another LoveCast every day, 10 p.m. New York time, 10 a.m. China time. That's it for today. Hope you're having a wonderful time. I love you. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye-bye.